Hey everyone, Dave here. Kat, Link and little Charlie have asked me to have a bit of a chat about the upcoming first race in the Kunanyi Trail Series for 2023, that being the Potato Hopper and the Snake Plains race. So the Potato Hopper, that's the enduro event, which is slightly longer at 20 kilometres, and Snake Plains is the sports event, which is 13 kilometres. I've done both races. They're both absolutely awesome. So if you've signed up and you haven't done them before, you're in for an absolute treat. And if you haven't signed up yet, definitely get onto it because they're both really good introductory races to Kunanyi. You get to see a wide variety of different landscapes, different terrain. There's some epic climbs, some nice technical sections, some really good downhills, and just the scenery is amazing on both courses. So really looking forward to it. I hope everyone's been training well. We've had a good start to 2023. Locally, we haven't had many trail races for the past few months. So hopefully you're as keen as I am to toe the start line. Being only a couple of weeks away, I'm really looking forward to it. So what I thought I would do in sharing some tips about the races is to cut them down into each of the distinct parts. Because both of them share a similar route to start with the Snake Plains course only differing to the Potato Hopper. When you get to the Snake Plains turn off, then you're obviously missing a bit of rock hopping, and you join onto the pipeline track a little bit closer to the start. So they're both very similar though. A nice solid climb to start, some technical sections, and then a descent, and then some nice comfortable running along the pipeline trail. So what I thought I would do was just have a bit of a chat about that initial climb. I think my top tip for both races going into them is to really not take the gradual incline up the pipeline track for granted. It is actually quite a steep climb right from the very start, and you don't probably know it as much when you first start because the pipeline's pretty deceiving in that way. But if you take off at 3k pace and get to the bottom of Silver Falls and you've already got lactic in the legs, that's not a great start to either race, and you can really do yourself a disservice for the rest of the race. So what you want to do is have a nice gentle start to the race, go slower than perhaps what you were expecting, and you really want to build into that climb. So as I said before, I think it's about, might be 500 to 600 meters along the pipeline track, which is pretty non-technical, just a gradual climb. But as I said, it's really important to start conservatively. You then get to the bottom of Silver Falls trail and you gradually start to really climb quite significantly at that stage. So you really want to get into a nice rhythm. Uphill running is all about being nice and relaxed. So I've been trail running now, specifically for trail running now for probably 10 years. It's only now that I'm, learning all the secrets about uphill running. So I think when I first started running, I just attacked the hills and hope for the best. And inevitably, I'd often blow up and just have to hold on for the rest of the race. But the more training I do on the mountains and climbing, I'm finding that a lot of my times are a lot faster when I'm actually feeling like I'm going slow. It's really deceiving in that way. So when you're climbing at your fastest, you actually feel nice and relaxed, and you can feel like you've got a lot more in the tank. So as you're going up Silver Falls, you want to get straight into climbing mode, find your groove, and stay in that groove for as long as you possibly can. So uphill running, you want to gently lean into the climb, not too much though, because obviously you don't want to slow yourself down either, and you just want to start taking some smaller steps. So when you get to the steps, for example, if you could easily step up 2 steps instead of 1, I'd definitely recommend to only go up 1 step and keep those steps nice and small, because if you have a couple of big steps in a race or jump up a ledge or something like that, you can really flood your legs with lactic, which can really slow you down for the remainder of the climb. So stay nice and relaxed, little steps and nice big arm swings and power your way up. There's also no shame in walking a climb. This is trail running, it's a lot different to road running. So this is a pretty serious, climb, to start a race with. So a lot of people will be walking. So don't feel like you're doing yourself a disservice if you have to slow and do some power hiking. So if that happens, again, you still want to take nice, powerful, sort of smaller steps. Put your palms on your knees and just drive your knees forward up the hill. Uphill running is all about momentum. So as long as you're just giving it a crack and just keep on pushing as hard as you can, when you get to that stage, you'll get there, and then you've got a nice bit of flat section to look forward to. So as I said before, it's a solid climb, but you'll be up to the top of Mills Track sooner than you know, and it's a beautiful view, climbing up through some nice forest. And don't get carried away. As I said before, focus on those little relaxed steps, keep the heart rate down, nice powerful arm swings, and you'll get there in no time. So once you get up to the top of, so you pass Silver Falls, beautiful waterfall, taking the view. It's usually really noisy. It's quite a big waterfall, so it's a beautiful way to start a race. And you start climbing some stairs and rocks, and it comes very, very steep. And then you get to the top of Mills Track, which is about, I think that's after about 2 kilometres, a 2 kilometre climb, and all of a sudden you're on Mills Track. So this is where you sort of get to flush a bit of lactic out of the legs and start at a nice relaxed pace along the Mills Track, so you can really give the rest of the race a good crack. So the Mills Track, it starts getting rocky pretty quick. It's muddy at the first part, and there's roots and rocks and things like that. So it won't be long until you're running across some really technical terrain. So the key I find in running in technical terrain is to what I call keeping the body really relaxed, but the mind very sharp. So you don't really want to be thinking about the post-race barbecue at this stage, because you can easily trip, and if you lose concentration when you're running across that sort of terrain, it can definitely spell disaster. So when I mean staying sharp, it's all about staying really, really focused, to the extent that you're not noticing much else around you. You're looking probably a couple of meters ahead of you. You're anticipating the best line to move through a certain section, avoiding rocks or loose rocks, trying to find the most sturdy rocks that you can find to land on, because you don't want to land on one and sprain an ankle or worse. So definitely key to staying really, really focused. And when I say relaxed in terms of the body, you need to be really relaxed and willing, able to move in a different direction at short notice, because sometimes you land on technical terrain and you get a slight bit of movement in a rock and it might throw you off. So if you're rigid and you're stepping hard with your full weight down on a loose rock, it's going to not end in a good way. Potentially, you're tripping up and hurting yourself, and we don't want anyone to get hurt in the race. So you really want to stay nice and relaxed, and almost like running, a bit of an exaggeration, but running on eggshells. So you don't want to put all your weight down on the technical rocks as you're running through. You want to stay nice and relaxed and land on them as gently as possible, and anticipating any movement in the rocks or anything like that. So I find if you do that, you stay super, super focused. You're looking for the best lines. You're always looking for rocks which might be by themselves and they look like they're a little bit loose. Just avoid them. Try and find those sturdy ones that are wedged underneath other rocks, and just be willing to anticipate, potential movement. And you really want to, stay on your feet throughout the whole race. We don't want anyone tripping up. So I think the Mills Track, I think I've written it down here. Just trying to remember how far it is. So I think there's a decent chunk of the race. Obviously you've got that 2K climb, and then you've got probably the Snake Plains turn off. I'm not sure how far it is, but it's not all that far. So you've still got some technical terrain to run along for a bit. And I think that's obviously where the races differ. When you come to the Snake Plains intersection, you're going down onto the left off the trail and down into Snake Plains. So I'll start with that first. So Snake Plains is a really interesting trail. It can get really muddy even when the conditions have been quite dry. So I think last time we did it, we had an absolute thunderstorm. It was pouring down rain in the week beforehand. and it was very wet and muddy conditions. So expect the unexpected on Snake Plains, and really pays to have some really, really grippy shoes for both races, because if you have a bit of rain on the slippery rocks, for example, but also the deep mud, which you can get on Snake Plains. The Snake Plains descent, I think it's about 3 Ks as a pretty solid descent. So the first bit, you're sort of going down some rocks, and then you're down into the sort of what we call the Snake Plains area, which is more like sort of boggy sort of plains. You really have to be careful at that stage, because there can be some really sort of deep holes and divots and things like that going down. So be really careful here. Downhill running is all about staying nice and relaxed. Again, being super focused, watching where you're treading a couple of meters in advance, trying to pick the best lines down there. And you have a great time, because even if it is muddy, it's super fun. You might be in mud up to your knees, but you have an absolute ball down that trail, especially going anti-clockwise as well. Previously we went clockwise, so anti-clockwise down Snake Plains, you get a terrific view looking off Kunanyi towards Kingston and that sort of way, and it's really spectacular. So stay nice and relaxed on the descent through the mud. If it is muddy, tie your shoelaces really tight, but obviously not so tight you're going to get sore top of your feet afterwards, but you really don't want the mud sucking off your shoes. That's a bad way to go about your race, because then you obviously have to fish them out and try and put them on. Sometimes if it's cold, you got cold fingers. I'm sure everyone's been there, so it's not a great position to be in. So that's Snake Plains. It's a really nice trail, really nice solid descent. You've got plenty of rocks and mud, and you have an absolute ball down there. So where Snake Plains turns off, the potato field race keeps going straight ahead, further down into the mules track, and it gets more and more technical. So you're doing quite a lot of rock hopping and boulder hopping. Again, it's really important to here, there's a couple of places, I guess, where it's a little bit unclear where you're going. There's a couple of poles and things in amongst the rocks. So rather than always trying to look for the poles, looking up while you're running across technical terrain, you want to just find the next pole and then just aim your general direction towards the pole and not keep looking up at it, because that's where you lose focus and all of a sudden you've fallen over or sprained an ankle or something like that. So always just focus on your immediate surroundings. Don't keep looking up where the poles are. Just look from one pole to the next. So I think Snake Plains, after that, it gets a lot more technical in terms of the potato fields. And you eventually come past what's known as the disappearing tarn. So if anyone's been lucky enough to run past there, it's a beautiful lake, blue lake, which just appears when there's a lot of rain in the area, and it soon quickly subsides when it doesn't rain. So it's a beautiful part of Kunanyi, and it's actually probably one of my favourite parts of the mountain, the potato fields. Big boulders, and then there's these little sort of potato-sized rocks where it gets its name from, just cover the whole area. So it's almost like a landslide, and you run across it. It's absolutely stunning, it is. So as I said before, very technical though. It's really important for those who don't run technical terrain all that much to really be careful here and just take your time. There's no point rushing it and doing yourself damage, so take it nice and slow, and you'll be across there in no time. So once you go across the potato fields, you then join up to the Wellington Falls track, and you have a little bit of, it's not very long, but it's a little bit of flat and some mud, and all of a sudden you're descending down into Wellington Falls. And if you've had a bit of rain, you can hear the roar of Wellington Falls, which is a massive waterfall in Kunanyi. If there's people who haven't run up there before, it's absolutely stunning area of the mountain. So you've got a bit of a descent there. Again, it's probably about 3K descent. It's a little bit more gradual than the Snake Plains descent, but it can get very slippery because it's got a lot of leaves and bark. And sometimes I find that the most slippery terrain to run in, when you've got that wet bark, if it's rained before, and leaves, you can really trip or fall over pretty easily. So always read the conditions as you're running down. So if it starts to get a little bit slippery, it's probably going to be slippery for the rest of the descent. So just be super focused there. but it's a really nice descent, nice and gradual, and then all of a sudden you join back up onto the pipeline track a little bit further up than the Snake Plains. So with the potato hopper, I think you join the pipeline about 10 or 11 Ks to go. And at this stage, you know, you're going to be tired, inevitably, because you've had that big climb, you've run across some technical terrain, you've been really focused, and mentally and physically you're really drained, and you've, you know, probably pushed yourself quite hard as well. So the pipeline, a lot of people, you know, might think, oh, it's going to be a nice, easy sort of a run, because pipelines gradually uphill all the way and then gradually downhill. So we're running back down the pipeline, and it's pretty flat, and it's got a nice descent down to the finish. But mentally, I think it's probably the hardest part of the race, because it is a long way, especially with the potato hopper race. As I said before, you've got about 11 Ks to go. So you really want to get into your groove there. You probably want to get into about your half marathon effort at that stage. It's not your pace. You know, you're not going to be able to run your half marathon pace towards the end of the potato hopper race, but you want to get into your half marathon effort and just get into that groove. And, you know, I like to sort of, you know, as I said before, you're mentally tired, so I like to break down that last bit as I run along. So it might be, okay, I'll run to the end of this straight, and just set little targets along the way. Don't be too focused about looking down at your watch, how many Ks you got to go, because you can make it a very, very long run back to the start. So as I said before, Snake Plains also joins up to the pipeline. You've got about 6 Ks of the pipeline, or 5 to 6 Ks. And again, it's just a gradual decline back to the finish. But again, you're going to have really tired legs. The Snake Plains is pretty, as I said before, it's pretty decent descent. So you've probably got really tired quads. So you really focus on form as you come down to the pipeline. Stay nice and relaxed. Get into your 10K to half marathon effort pace. If you're in the Snake Plains race, you know, you don't have as long to go, so you can run a little bit faster, and really try and engage those glutes and your hamstrings, which you know, probably haven't been used as much as your quads and things as you climb up Silver Falls and then down Snake Plains. So get into that nice relaxed zone, and you'll be at the finish in no time. So yeah, they're my main tips for both races. So I guess the key takeaways are, when you start, make sure you start really conservatively. Get in your groove. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, power hiking, because it is a very solid climb, but it's all about staying nice and relaxed on the climb, little steps, and it gets to the point where you are power hiking, like a lot of us will be. Just take nice, you know, forceful steps forward with your palms and your knees. Really drive yourself up the hill, and you'll be there in no time. Second tip, talking about the Mills track. So obviously you want to stay super focused on that technical terrain. You also want to be nice and relaxed though in terms of the body. So you don't want to be placing your foot down really hardly on loose rocks. You want to stay nice and light as possible, and just anticipate any movement in the rocks. So always pick the best lines, always look ahead, at the, you know, a couple of meters ahead. Make sure that in the back of your mind you know what's coming up for your next step. Then we talked about the descent, both on the Snake Plains race and potato hopper. So Snake Plains, as I said before, a little bit more brutal. Potato hopper is a little bit more gradual than the Snake Plains. So it can get slippery on both descents, muddy in the case of the Snake Plains, potato hopper with loose, wet bark and leaves. So both are really slippery. Pays to wear good footwear, so make sure you got your really grippy trail shoes on, and just stay super focused on the descent. By the time you get onto the pipeline trail for both races, as I said before, stay nice and relaxed, get into your 10K to your half marathon effort, and just get into that groove, and it won't be long till you're at the finish line, and then you can enjoy the post-race barbecue and the usual get-together everyone has after the race, which is really cool. So it's an awesome race for both races. So as I said before, if you signed up, you're in for a real treat. If you haven't signed up yet, get onto it, and I'll see you all there. Okay, thanks.